So the last video I did was on why Brexit is bad for the NHS. And just looking through the comments, I could see two clusters of criticisms. One was it's the government that's messing up the NHS, not Brexit. The other one was immigrants are burdening the NHS. So let's deal with both of those. With the government, yes, the government has been messing up the NHS, from private finance initiatives to not training enough staff for the NHS, to the underfunding that started in 2010, to the complete screw up of a reorganisation in 2012. That's not the question. The question is whether Brexit makes life better for the NHS, makes life worse for the NHS, or makes no difference. And NHS experts, as in those people who actually run the NHS or spend their lives researching NHS functioning, the vast majority of them think that Brexit makes it worse for reasons of finances, for reasons of staff hiring, for reasons of research and innovation. I refer you to my previous video on that. Now, on to the issue of immigrants and immigrants burdening our NHS. Surely our NHS will be better off with less immigrants, right? No, not necessarily so. The real question is, do people pay their way? So everybody burdens the NHS, young, old, immigrant, native, but everyone should be paying into the NHS. And there's a huge range there in terms of people's burden versus what they pay in. So some people are born in this country, die in this country, never have a job, and they're a burden on public services from cradle to grave. There are also immigrants who come in their 20s or 30s and start up businesses here, employ dozens, maybe hundreds of locals, pay in a shed load of money in taxes, don't burden the NHS at all, and then go for retire in another country. But what is the overall pattern for immigrants? And this has been studied, and it has been found that immigrants bring in more money than they cost. They pay more in taxes than they take out in public services. And this is particularly true of EU immigrants. So they pay their way, and then they provide more money in order to improve those services. And it is completely our government's fault that instead of taking that dividend from immigration and paying it back into local communities and those fundamental services, our government has used it elsewhere. And in fact, our government has even jumped in on the anti-immigrant rhetoric, fully knowing that they are taking this money from immigrants with one hand and then pointing the finger at them with the other hand. And that is going to get us into a lot of economic trouble, because if we lose these immigrants, we will have much, much less money, and that's going to start hurting. I just watched that video back, and there's one more thing to add, which is if you thought we'll just keep the good immigrants, keep out the bad ones, it's actually not that simple, because people make their own choices about where they want to live and work. And if they see a country where the pound is falling, so the earnings are lower, where the climate feels hostile to foreigners, where rights that they had before as EU citizens aren't guaranteed, and also if they just philosophically object to Brexit, like some do, then they will be leaving, and we are seeing nurses and doctors and scientists leaving and also turning down jobs in the UK. And so that's the reality of Brexit.